Well, I like to ask where everybody's from to see how far everybody's traveled to get to our little tiny cabin here. But I was doing this at the beginning of the year, and we don't have any Florida people in this group, I don't think. But you do? You guys from Florida? Oh yeah. Why? Too busy chattering to say. Well, if you're from Boca Raton, Florida, you don't say you're from Florida, and you don't say you're from Boca Raton. You say you're from Boca. I don't know why this is, but it is. So I had a real big group here, and I was asking where everybody was from, and I got a Boca on this side, and I got a Boca on that side. These two ladies live 2 blocks from each other in the same neighborhood, Boca Raton. Same buses, boats, planes, trains, and they met right here in front of this little tiny cabin. So that's why I asked now, see if I can't get lightning to strike twice. Needless to say, they didn't hear a word I said. They broke off to the side, neighborhood watch, I don't know. But I'm glad I got them introduced. Well, I want to welcome you all to the Savage Cabin. My name is Carl Johnson, and I'm a foreman with the Alaska Road Commission, and I'm in charge of the Savage Camp Road Crew. Now, this park road that we're currently building, that you're traveling on, is a cooperative effort between 3 government agencies. Between the National Park Service, obviously, my outfit that's building the road, the Alaska Road Commission, and also the Alaska Railroad that's helping to finance this. Now, the railroad wants this road because they want access to Kantishna, which is a mining district about 75 miles west of here, just outside of the park boundary. There's a lot of gold and other valuable ores and minerals coming out of the ground, and they want the road because they want easy access to get that stuff to the train and out to market. National Park Service wants this road for a couple of reasons. They want it for their rangers, obviously, for their patrol needs so they can get back and forth into the wilderness easily. But more importantly, they want it for you fine folks, give you access to the wilderness and the wildlife that's here. And everybody had their own idea about what this road should be. The railroad, well, time is money. They just wanted a straight shot, path of least resistance, let's hurry up and get it done. But the superintendent here, Harry Karstens, and the National Park Service had a very different idea about what this road should be. They wanted a very specific scenic route with the best opportunities to see the mountain, which I hope we were all lucky enough to see today. Congratulations. And the wild animals in their natural habitat. Old Harry's a very persistent and stubborn man, and he got his way. And that's the road we're building, the scenic road, or as me and my men like to call it, the Highline Route. We began work on this road 5 short years ago, just as soon as the railroad arrived here in 1922, and it was agreed upon between my bosses at the Road Commission and Superintendent Karstens in the Park Service that cabins should be built every 10 to 15 miles out the length of this road. The first of those cabins we built is the cabin you see before you today, the Savage Cabin. We completed work on this a couple years ago, early in the 1925 season. It's one of 2 cabins we built so far, with 4 more cabins that we have planned out what's going to end up being a 90-mile long road through this park. And we use these cabins as our basis of operation for each particular section of road we're working on. It's too time consuming to move men and equipment back and forth every day, so we live out here for the entire work season, from about mid-April until about mid-October, or whenever the money runs out, because when you're dealing with the government, sometimes funds come up a little bit short, so we got to leave a little bit early. Now, we don't actually sleep in this cabin as you might think, but we use this cabin as our cookhouse and our food storage cache, which is why in a minute you folks will get to see around this side here, we have a whole bunch of nails sticking out of the window shutters and the window frames. We have those nails there to keep the bears out of our food and away from our cook. Me and my men actually sleep in canvas wall tents, and we have no nails between us and the bears. Well, except for the cook. We let the cook sleep in here because I'm sure you'll understand. You got to take care of whoever's feeding you. So the cook gets the luxury of sleeping in there. Now, because our work season is so short, we have to work every single day that we're here. We work 7 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, no matter what. Rain, snow, shine, mosquitoes, don't feel good. We work every day. The only day that we get off all year is the last day of work season when we're on our way out of here. We face a lot of special challenges because we're so far north. It's difficult to get equipment up here. We do have some. We have a Holt 50 steam tractor, and we got a few Model T dump trucks, but they're mostly ineffective because of the boggy muskeg tundra ground that's here. They just get mired down in there, and they're pretty well useless. Almost this entire road you're going to see and travel on today was built by hand by me and my men with pick and shovel. The only thing we can use that equipment for is the very final grading to smooth off the top. Everything else is done entirely by hand. Finding capable men to do this work is a challenge too. In the beginning, we tried bringing young men up from the States, and what we found is most of them just can't hack it. It's too isolated up here, the conditions are too difficult, and the hours are too long. 20 out of the 21 men on my road crew are between 40 and 65 years old. They're former miners and prospectors that stampeded up here at the turn of the century looking for gold, and they're the only ones that are accustomed to working long hours in these specific conditions, so they're the only ones that last on my crew. We face a lot of other added expenses. We pay a lot for labor up here. We pay our men $6 a day plus room and board. Now the average wage in the States for the same work is about $2 a day, and you got to fend for yourself for your own food and shelter. So we do pay our men a pretty good wage. All our supplies cost more. Everything has to come by boat and by train to arrive here. To give you an example, a sack of concrete in Seattle is about 75 cents. That same sack of concrete, when we purchase it up here, is almost $6 a sack. So everything's quite a bit more money. The two biggest expenses we have every year are repairs that have to be done to the road and just opening the road up in the spring. So every winter we get a bunch of frost heaves and frost slumps in the road, and we got to smooth those out. The rivers and streams will fill up with ice, and that can damage the bridges. In the summertime, when we get the heavy rains, we can have whole sections of road wash away. If we get really heavy rains and the rivers flood, we can have bridges wash away entirely. The Savage River Bridge you folks are going to cross before long here washed away entirely the year before last. We had to go about a mile downstream and pick it up piece by piece, carry it back up and put it back together. Very expensive and time consuming. Before we can do any of this stuff, we have to open the road in the spring. When we get here in the middle of April, the snow drifts can be as much as 30 feet deep on top of the road. We have to clear all that snow out of the way just to get out here. What's worse than the snow is what they call overflow ice. And what that is where the culverts run under the road and the ditches run along the side. Those will fill up with ice. More water will come on top, it'll refreeze, it spills onto the road. That ice builds up all winter long. When we get here in the spring, that can be as much as 10 feet thick. The only way we found to remove that ice is to drill it, blast it with dynamite, and shovel it out of the way. To give you just an idea of the cost, the average cost per mile for a road in the States is about $1,500 a mile. Our road right now looks like it's going to end up costing about $15,000 a mile. This is turning out to be one of the most expensive roads ever built because of all these special challenges we face up here. Now the other reason we built these cabins was for the Rangers to use as their wintertime relief cabins. And I asked Superintendent Carsons why he wanted the cabins 10 to 15 miles apart and why his Rangers even had to be out here to begin with. And he tells me when his Rangers come out here on wintertime patrols, they can come out here for as much as 3 and 4 months at a time. When they come out here, they have to carry all their own food and equipment and supplies with themselves for themselves and their dog teams. So when they leave park headquarters, their sleds can weigh over a ton loaded up with all this stuff. So they're carrying very heavy loads. They're traveling through a lot of difficult terrain, steep mountains, narrow passes, a lot of frozen rivers that they have to cross. And those snow drifts you heard me mention, those are too soft for the dogs to get across. So what happens is the Rangers have to jump off their sleds, strap on their snowshoes, and they become the lead dogs. And they got to pack the trail down in front of their teams. Now because of all these circumstances, Harry wanted to make sure that his Rangers could make the next relief cabin in the short daylight hours of wintertime. So that's why he wanted them spaced that way. As to why his Rangers need to be out here in the wintertime, he tells me that that's when the poachers are most active. Early in the winter, the animals have a little more meat on their bones, so they get some more for that. But what they're really after is the wintertime furs. They're the thickest and most luxurious, and they bring the most money. Because the poachers are out here, the Rangers have to be out here. Now, if the Rangers are out on patrol and they can't reach one of these relief cabins, their first choice is to find one of these big spruce trees like the ones you see around here. They'll try and find one that has a nice wide sweep on it that goes all the way down to the ground, and they'll tuck underneath there with themselves and their dogs. Now, if they get stuck out above the tree line in the open tundra, they have no choice but to tuck in on the leeward side of their sleds and hope that daylight comes soon. Now, there's only about 4 or 5 hours of daylight here in the wintertime. The temperatures can be as much as negative 40 and negative 50 degrees below zero. These are incredible outdoorsmen. Not only have they never lost a Ranger, they've never even had a Ranger get frostbite. These men don't just survive, they actually thrive out here. They're pretty incredible. In fact, I was speaking to one of the Rangers that's on staff here, Grant Pearson. He told me himself and Ranger Al Wing got to stay in the other cabin that we have on Sanctuary River for the first time this past winter. And he told me that they marveled over the plankwood floors we put in these and the big iron ranges, and he looked at Al and said, "Welcome to the Waldorf." To which Al replied, "They're really going to have us spoiled with this luxury. It's a good thing we're only staying one night. We don't want to get too used to this." Now I asked Grant, "How can you fit yourself and an entire team of dogs inside one of these little tiny cabins?" And he said, "Oh no, the dogs don't sleep inside. They sleep outside tied up to the trees." I said, "Geez, Grant, they're the ones doing all the work. How could you leave them outside like that?" And he said, "Oh no, it's not like that. Don't feel bad for the dogs. They actually prefer it outside. It's way too hot inside these cabins for them. They're specifically adapted to this Arctic environment. They have very thick undercoats, almost like a wool lining, and those long, fluffy outer coats act like a rain slicker, keeps them warm and dry. And they use those long, fluffy tails they have to curl up in front of their noses, and that'll help heat the air that they breathe so they don't get that cold in their lungs. He tells me that they'll let the snow drift right over top of them, and these dogs will just sleep like babies out here. They'll come out here in the morning time, and they all pop up like daisies, screaming and yelling, hooting and hollering. They can't wait to get to work again. I don't know about you folks, but I don't exactly kick off the sheets and go racing. At least not until I had some coffee, right? Well, I want to thank you folks for visiting with me on this beautiful summer day we're having, learning a little about the cabin. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Take as many pictures as you like of me, with me. I can take pictures of you, whatever you want to do. Come on up, have a look inside, try and get a little heat out of here. You can also look the window on the side around there. Just be careful for our bear deterrent system.